What a pleasure it is to spend a few moments with you on a program that I am pretty sure you're going to enjoy. How do I know state of the profession? Well, I don't want to impress you with what I'm saying, but I've done over 4,000 presentations like this over many, many years, get into many countries every year, and it is interesting to see really where we are today. Our organizations, that big CR is Clinicians Report Foundation, nonprofit, we've been around almost 50 years and we're not going anywhere. It's probably more needed now to evaluate products than ever before. And the other one, the gold colored one, is practical clinical courses. That is videos and courses all over. I'll show you some of them as we go through here. I'm sitting right where that snow on the lower right is. That's my front yard. And there it is on the left, a little different time of year. Utah is loaded with stuff to do. We'd love to have you come and see some of our courses. There's the group in Utah that helps me and many, many others internationally. They're about 50 full-time. The white coats are the in vitro group where we test things. The blue coats are the in vivo group where we look at the products after they've been through the basic science research of the white coats. And the black coats are the educational group. Dr. Rella Christensen ran the organization for 27 years. I've edited about 20. I have another man right now who is taking leadership, but I'm still the so-called senior consultant. There's the group that comes basically on their own dime to help me teach. They're from all over North America. They range in practice from a few months to, we've got a few geezers in there. There's one, here's another one, there's another one. But they're all age ranges, genders, and it's a wonderful group because we're all after the same thing: quality and honesty in the profession, and doing our very best to make this remain a profession and not just turn it into a business. You may get a catalog if you get on our website. I'll show you how to do that later. We actually have all of our stuff available if you're interested on that 800 number or that website, pccdental.com. There they are, a little more clear. By the way, that's not me. I am kind of stupid, but not that stupid. I do have a grandson who can flip 2 circles on that same hill and still hit the ground with on his feet most of the time. Where are we? March 15th. If you look at that, in fact, I just got another email from them today, and by golly, the GDP has gone down another point or two. So we're okay. We're not wonderful. I think we're much better than we were back when I started this organization, when it was 18% interest, if you can imagine that. And I was funding the whole center personally. Here is the most important part of that slide. Patient education is mandatory for practice. The things you're going to see in this brief time I'm with you range from soup to nuts. They range from analog to digital. Digital is taking over, but many of the times analog is better. We have evaluated 47 different types, not brands, types of technology. And believe it or not, only 12 of those digitals were better than analog. That's kind of depressing. There's a long ways to go. Let's make you happy for a minute. That is overall vocations, professions, overall. And it's pretty impressive where we are. If you judge us with health professions, guess where we are? How do you like that one? Now, we've vacillated about 1, 2. We've been down as low as 5 or 6, but often we're number 1. Why? The way of life is wonderful. The service to people when they sit in your operatory and after you finish something and just sit there and cry. I have that happen so often. When you put them back together, they're feeling like a whole human again. It's amazing. We have a lot to feel blessed for and to be enthusiastic about. I'm an animal lover. I have horses, dogs, many different types of animals, but the best animals are a bunch of grandkids, and I live on a little ranch. Now, here's the way this is going to go. I'll give you a topic and I'll discuss it for just a few minutes, and then I'll give you a summary based on my many experiences all over the world as well as US and Canada. I have one son. I have two dentists in the family. One's a prosthodontist, one's a general dentist, and one of them practices in Canada. They're very different than us. They're in many ways more professional than the dentists in America, but they're very, very similar overall. I feel very candidly we have the perfect team. The perfect team. And if you look up and down that line, try to find a void. I don't see a void. We have specialists, general dentists. This is not a hierarchy. This is just a listing of whatever category. Dental hygienists, expanded duty DAs and DHs. There's your key. The typical general dentist is grossing. This is ADA data, about $800,000 a year. He has, or she has, a 72% overhead, leaving somewhere around 500K. And you got 40% tax on that. It's just amazing where we are with a net of 200 to 300 before tax. It's not a major money making thing, but some are trying to make it into that. I do not really like what's happening there. We're in a service profession. We make a very decent income. Laboratory techs, business personnel, and look what I've got down here. These people are your educators. You realize that? You get out of dental school, and who comes into your office? Some of these distributors will go in, my goodness, 6, 8, 10 different offices a day. They can tell you whether a product's working or not. I have great respect for the dental distributors, manufacturers. That's where our research comes from. The schools have to say whatever they're expected to say, because otherwise they will not get money from the company the next year. The distributors, they see it as it is. If a product's not working, they know it before you will, for sure. Is this part of dentistry going to change? I would say, here's my summary. I'm not going to read these. You can read them as well as I. Delivery of oral care will be markedly changed. At this particular point, there are about 50% of American dentists either in a DSO or in a group. Now, they're very different animals. As you know, a group is usually a group of general dentists or specialists who have banded together to get various cuts on buying equipment and in being able to lobby with the companies. That's a group. They're still basically private practice, whereas DSOs have varying types of situations. Some they buy your practice and your patients. Others you are a team member with them. They're good and they're bad. I've written various papers on that. It's a place for young dentists to go. The average young dentist goes into a DSO. Most of them, they stay about a year and a half. Then they come and either find you and it sounds bad, but hope you will quit so they can take over the practice. It's very hard to start a private practice right now, almost impossible, but it's being done. When they go into a community, you have to find out what's not really in that community. I had a young fellow who wanted to go into Kansas, and I said, "Well, what size city?" He told me, and I gave him the cities that were about that size. And then I said, what do you know about the level of dentistry in that community? Is someone doing implants? Is someone got a CEREC? Are they into sleep appliances? You have to jump on something they're not doing to get started. And I'll tell you one thing you start with. What is it? There are 40 million people in America who do not have any teeth. A couple of implants, and they will praise you to the entire community. Well, practice is going to change. And private practitioners, one person with an assistant, is that going to remain that way? Yes and no. There are estimates that the development of group and corporate will basically get to 70%. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what many of the prognosticators are saying. Well, that says, okay, there's 30% still left. So there is a place for every type of practice. I don't really feel uncomfortable about that. This is kind of an interesting slide. It's an ADA slide, just 23 now. One dentist, one location, 36%. One location and more than one dentist. You can see that's an enormous amount of the profession. 76%. So these scatter groups are elsewhere, but now a lot of these are in corporate and they still consider themselves a private practitioner. But it gives you some idea the type of facility in which they are. Look at this, 100 locations. Obviously, that's corporate. That's clear over here. So it's still got a long ways to go to wipe out private practice. U.S. dental practice ownership. And now ADA reports their data slower because they have to collect all the data. In 21, 73% of all private practice dentists were owners compared to 84% in 2005. So you can see going up that line just that many years, it's changed. It's changed another 11 or 12%. Female dentists are less likely than male dentists to own their practice. So you're looking at pretty well where we are. Dentist practice ownership is declining significantly. And this millennial group, I've done quite a bit of study of the millennials. And if you're a mature dentist and you're trying to find an associate, you should do a very in-depth interview. And may I also suggest having that person come in and treat a few patients. Why? Because the schools have had such a hard time over the last while. The COVID and the recession slowed everything down. And some of them that come to our hands-on courses have had only watching our videos in their school. That was their curriculum clinically. So check how the clinical skills are and check if the positive parts of these characteristics, which are well known, if they're in that person. Most of these are good, 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 good. Well, maybe good, maybe good, good. Yeah, they're fairly honest. This one has hurt the millennial population to some degree. Some of them work harder than anybody, and others don't. They're a much more informal group than the older dentists. You see me here with a tie on. It's kind of a uniform for me. I take it off, but in the meantime, that old adage, dress for success, is still there. It's still there. They like to work in groups. And so you get somebody in your office, a young dentist, and let's say you've got several staff people. The average dentist only has two assistants and one hygienist in the U.S. They have to make an attempt to get more hands working, or you're stuck at the fairly pedestrian level of finance that I mentioned earlier. Two more hands. In other words, another dental assistant, it's well known now, statistically increases practice productivity 40%. In fact, we've even got data that's higher from some of the practices. So if you're right in the middle of the adult dilemma, when some kid or two has gone to college and they're doing 20 grand a year, or up to, oh my goodness, 100 grand a year if they go into dental and veterinary and some of the others, you've got to run yourself to really make enough money to pay the family expenses. So look at expanded functions. I strongly suggest that to you. Private practitioners, well, I've just said, will be a smaller portion of the workforce. It'll still be available. And there are a lot of patients who don't want to be in a DSO. They want to see you. They want to become part of your family. I've been practicing several decades, many decades. And as a matter of fact, I still have people that I saw, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and they are literally just like family. They come in and you know them, you know their children, and many patients prefer that kind of a relationship rather than seeing a new dentist every time they come in, which happens in some of the DSOs, not all. But what about this? Where are we going with this so-called workflow? I don't really like that word. To me, dentistry is enjoyable. The patients are enjoyable. I don't even call it work. I guess you could call it work. Some call it work. To me, it's dental office activities. What are they going to be? Do I even have to say? Digital will reign totally eventually, totally. Everything you do will be contained in that computer, and you'll be able to push a button and get into your lab. Push another button, you'll be able to get a specific patient and get an email or text to them. You're looking at the back. That generally speaking is the money part of the digital portion. Somewhere out in the front, that's probably starting to show it right there, is the part the patient's looking at. Two monitors are basically standard of care at the moment, where the patient and you are looking at this one, and the dentist is looking at the one behind to see if the fees have been entered properly. Connect Dental is a good example. Digital dental exchange, that connects every significant portion of the practice. And a simple click and you're into it. Now, some of you older people watching this say, I don't want that. You don't have to go there. You'll be handicapped slightly, but not much. Especially most of you older people, your children are all gone. The wallpaper's ripped off the walls, the rugs are replaced, and life is starting again. So you don't have to be running balls of fire at that age. I compare it to automobiles. When I had 7 kids in college. I only have 3 kids, but they married poverty-stricken spouses, so that put 3 more on the top of me. And then my wife went back and did a PhD. 7 in college will run you as fast as you can go. I felt like selling marijuana or something, just make money. I'm kidding, of course, but it is a major thing. Patient education is getting more and more related to dental practice software, and it is good. There are many programs on there that will provide fairly complete information to the patient, and they can be run during a hygiene appointment. Just today, I had 3 patients who were in somewhat of a problem, each one of them, and I showed them alternatives for care, obviously informed consent, right on the video screen. So that's going to become more and more and more a part of what you do. Well, things like these inexpensive. Do you know my first intraoral camera would have been 35 years ago. We got it out of gastroenterology after a pretty nice cleanup. We were able to use it, and it was $30,000. That was way back. I still have that as an antique sitting in the basement, and it reminds me of how avant-garde that was when we first put it into the practice. 30,000 is a long ways from 299, and they just came out with another one at 1,000 with a little more capabilities. That should be, or something like it. There are 3 or 4 major brands at that same price now. That should be in every operatory. You're getting close to a pulp exposure. You pick the thing up, stick it in their mouth if they accept seeing it. Some don't want to see the inside of their mouth, but most do. Put it in there. You see that little pink color in that tooth? We're getting close to, you have to use their language, the nerve. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. Then you go a little bit deeper. Oh, we did not expose that nerve. It's so educational. I'm talking all the time when I'm treating patients. And as a psychologist, which I am, I can pretty well tell you that calms them completely when they know what's coming. A simple phrase like, you may find just a little discomfort, not much. It'll be over in about 1 second. Rather than just doing it and they jump and they don't know what to expect. That's not drug sedation, that's mental sedation. They can control themselves completely. Well, look at some of the well-known CBCT. Right now, somewhere around 28 to 32% of American dentists have a cone beam, but you can't make a choice there. It's very hard. Benco, as an example, has clinics set up in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, Dallas, and San Diego area, where you can go and see a whole group of whatevers, CBCTs, scanners, whatever, and you can put them in your hand. You can look at the icons on the cone beam. That one's too big. This one's too wide. That one hangs on the wall. This one they stand up for. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. I don't know it, although we've tested almost all of them. I'll give you a few to look at, like that one. That's a classic example of one of the avant-garde companies at the moment. Vatek is doing some very interesting things, as others are. They've got lower radiation now. You're doing those 4 different types of things with that device, and some of the images are outstanding. There is a panoramic on the newest Vatek. I think you would have to admit, even going through all the miscellaneous digital things we're doing right now for you to see this, that's pretty darn good panoramic. And that is the panoramic on the cone beam. That's not the stitched panoramic. That is a true panoramic on the cone beam, which is the major use for a cone beam most of the time. Now, there is another patient where that is the cone beam portion. You can take that cursor, run it across where I have that right there, measure that. Let's say that's 11 millimeters. Stick the implant in, move this big square back and forth, and this changes as you're doing it. Just unbelievable things we're able to do now. Not even dreamed about back when I was a child dentist, which I was. Workflow will be largely digital. It already is in many practices, but some dentists don't want to change. That's their choice. So if you're one of those, don't feel like you're behind. You're not. Much of the analog, I'm going to say it, is better than the digital. If you go back to, I'm not suggesting it, if you go back to a typical analog radiograph, believe it or not, it's more effective than the digitals right now. It's thinner, it follows the curvature of the arch. There are a lot of things about it that are in some ways better. So don't think you have to go digital or somebody's going to kick you out of the profession. Not the case. Third-party payment companies are the biggest challenge that we have in dentistry. I would have no difficulty in making that number one. Howard Ferrand and I and Rich Maddow and a few others with tens of thousands of dentists did a survey a few years ago, and third-party payment companies' dictation turned out number one. It was so far ahead of any other gripe that it was just unbelievable. That has to have more interaction. There was part of that survey. We had 23 concerns. Third party was the very, very highest one. We need American Dental Association, AGD, the specialty groups, your study clubs, your local dentists. I even in past years have gone in and taken several dentists with me and talked with the CEO of some of these companies to show them, look, if I put in an occlusal splint, they won't grind their teeth down. You could put the occlusal splint in, let's use today's prices, for $500 or $600, 2 or 3 times. Or you can pay at age 40, 45, a $32,000 rehab. Which do you prefer? They started paying for occlusal splints. You got to get proactive. Don't just sit there and whine. Do something. What are the darker colors there? We're having an exodus of mature people to the central U.S. Well, with the exception of this little phalanx hanging down here in Florida. But look at the older people. The darker the color, the more older people. If you're looking to do a lot of dentures, but have less income than some areas, there's where you go. And this is a whole group of people that really need significant help because many have grown up in families with very little financial resource, and therefore they need to have more dentistry done than many who have grown up in the fluoride era. Well, who's going to the dentist? We in America, this is ADA data, we in America see roughly 60% of the dentists. If you add those all up, don't take the time, you'll see that some of the states are really high. I live in a high state. Others are fairly low. But about an average of 60% of Americans go to the dentist at least once per year. That is unprecedented anywhere on the earth, literally. Productivity increasing concepts. I wish I had a half day to go through that list with you. Read it while I'm talking. You can double your productivity by just doing number one and getting another assistant, or even two. You'll more than double it. Get them knowledgeable. Don't let them just stand there and use the suction and blow. And this is the second assistant, six-handed. Code properly. There are now 800 codes. I'll bet your front desk doesn't know more than 300 or 400. Maybe not even that many. Make sure you're getting paid for all the things you're doing. And call these people and tactfully explain to them your challenge with their payments. Better collection, make sure you got a good front desk, and negotiate costs with your local distributor dealer. You can do that. But just now, there I am with two of our assistants and doing a simple impression. Now, if I drop something, this gal will leave, or that one will leave, and I'll have it in seconds. If I need something else, all of a sudden, an emergency thing, they got it. It doesn't stop. Does not stop. I hope you get that book. That's one of the more valuable books in coding that you're going to find. And that was completely done by Charles Blair, who died just last year. Now these three people have taken it over, and a lot of Blair's concepts are still in there. If you don't have that, just get it. PracticeBooster.com. Expanded clinical functions. Oh, wow. I have all of those responsibilities assigned, portions are all to staff. We bonus them if they take on more of the expanded functions. Let's just take occlusal splints. 1/3 of your population is chewing their teeth and they're wearing them down. 1/3 of them have grinding or clenching bruxism. An occlusal splint will last 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 years. And then they got to pay another $500 or $600 for another splint. If you have a 2,000 patient practice, which is average in America for general practice, you would have probably 600 who need occlusal splints. A simple little educational series. Who's going to turn it down? Who's going to turn down a snore appliance if they hate their CPAP? Takes a few continuing education courses, you can do that. And that's 50% of your adults. Something like a preventive appointment where every time they come in, they have some more caries. A simple statement like, would you like to slow down or even stop all that decay? Who's going to say no? Nobody. That's a simple half-hour appointment. Making a tray, having them use 5,000 parts per million fluoride. Colgate, Prevident 5,000 is the most effective one we've been able to test. And that would be 10%. That's 200 patients right there, just sitting there waiting for you to say that simple phrase. Sleep appliances are huge. We had all our staff, we have 50 full-time, we had all of them wear a home sleep test. We found some very interesting things in some of the mature people who had a significant amount of sleep apnea. About 15% of the snorers also have sleep apnea. You refer them off to a board-certified sleep physician. But the rest of them, if they don't like their CPAP, you make a sleep appliance. And if you want to get into Botox, my goodness, that's simple. You are the experts in small needles. you're using 30 gauge most of the time on a lot of the things you do, a slightly smaller needle, and you can squirt it right in there for TMD. You can put it in here for the nasolabial fold. There's so many things you can do. Now, these are time-saving things. That other list I gave you were actually revenue-producing things. Every one of these is pretty important. Let's just pick one. Crown try-in. You can say, "Oh, I'm the only one that can do that," or you can educate an assistant how to do it. They take the crown off. They take a little bit of air. If the patient jumps, then I've got to come in and anesthetize them, or a hygienist can do it. If they don't, it's about now today. We cemented some crowns. And what does that take to actually get the thing with a little prophy paste on it and seat it? It's seconds. And that's, I have to do that because legally I have to be there. Time saving is important. We have a lot of videos. There's a good example for you where watching a 1 hour video might be enough to even, well, like sealants, 50% of sealants are failing by 5 years. That is international data. This is 50% of your adults. This is 30% of your adults. There's so many of these things that you could do to excite you and your staff. Third-party payment will have changed markedly. Will have to change. There is a current strong negative feeling among practitioners. They're going to have to change. The practitioners are not going to change. They're getting riled up right now. A grassroots uprising is in the making. There are numerous organizations starting right now. What's going to happen to dental continuing education? Well, look at all the courses we've got. They're 2-day courses. They're hands-on. They're AGD mastership. And if you're just barely out of school up to 6 years, 0 to 5, you're half price. That group of 28 days, I'm going to say it, it sounds very egotistical. They're not all me. You can see that. They're names you know. That group of 28 days is more than a clinical part of a dental education. And you're not paying 400 grand for it. It's very inexpensive. Dental continuing education is going to be online and live. Live's not going away. I am a PhD psychologist, and I can tell you this is the most effective. This is secondary, but it's still good. You're in it tonight. Dental auxiliaries, what's going to happen there? I showed you that before. I suggest expanding dental assistants, dental hygienists, if you're close enough to your dental laboratory technicians on a difficult case, bring them right in. We have already just a perfect team if we just use it properly. And that's an example I've shown you before. I have no reservation in saying dental auxiliaries will be a major part of the future. They have to be. Mid-level practitioners, in spite of negative opinions of many dentists, will continue to grow. I don't think we need to call them mid-level. Expand the functions of your hygienists and assistants and lab techs under the dentist supervision, which I totally accept and have for 50 years. And I know very well once they are educated, they become just as competent or more than you. Products. Let's look at some products. You're going to hear a little bit about Mark III tonight. We've tested many of these products. So what? We've tested thousands of products. Yeah, but what is this company? They basically are getting premium products from all over the world. We have tested many of their products, and they're right up at the premiums for about 50% less price. I'm just showing you a couple. There's the Mark III that would replace, well, you know, the premium product that you're using there right now, but this one would be equal to it. Slightly different viscosity. There's another one. This would be vinyl polysiloxane impression material. Again, very comparable to your premium products at about 50% off. Well, so what? Let's say you get that. So what? That you know that 6 to 8% of your gross income, what did I say that was? 800,000. 6 to 8%. Let's just leave it at 6 for a minute. That's almost $50,000 is going out to small things like this. How about cutting it in half? That's gross now, not net. You've just saved $25,000. That's a small car every year. Think about it. Patterson, Burkhart, Benco, Shine, all of these major companies, we have tested their products. They get premium products. They put their private label name on it. And lo and behold, you've got a decent product for 40 to 50% off. Look at some of these new things that are coming. Wow, don't you see that way too often? What are we going to do with these people? You're going to see more and more and more preventive products. That's the newest version of glass ionomer. Equiforte turned out to be one of the top brands in our testing. That's a GC product, and 3M was right in there with them. These products are less sticky than the original glass ionomers. They actually bond to the tooth chemically. They chelate to the tooth. No other thing does that. Bonding agents don't bond after just a few months. They lose their bond. These don't. Here's Equiforte, 1,000 power. Here's enamel. Dr. Rella, my wife, does these electron microscope pictures. That's 3 years, and it's still a completely contiguous interface. Amazing. It's the only category of products that does that. When I treat a patient like that, and I don't use a karyostatic cement, these crowns will fail, guaranteed. I've got to use a resin-modified glass ionomer or a true glass ionomer, not resin. You put resin around a zirconia crown, none of which really fit nearly as well as the cast gold used to. You're going to have 20 years from now a real challenge with caries on the margins unless you use karyostatic cements. The ones we're somewhat stating after great research would be Relax Luting, 3M, and GC's Fuji-Sem Evolve. Both of those have turned out very well in the research. And new products like this are coming. That particular product started out as a composite. That was a poor place to start, but the concept is great. What is the concept? They've got 1.5% quaternary ammonium in the silicon dioxide particles. When the microbe touches that composite, they die. We're going to see more of these. I suggest in the next 10 years, there will be some very active ones. They started with composite. They're now selling that to some of the big companies to get involved with orthodontic brackets, implants with the same concept. And that's my little statement about that. They're talking to many of the biggies. You're going to see that concept now grow. Preventive procedures will be more available for caries and periodontal disease and affordable. Treatment procedures, we only have 3 major conditions we treat: periodontal disease, caries, and occlusion. They're not going away. My wife, a PhD microbiologist and physiologist, has now identified over 150 organism types in dental caries, and more than that in perio. You've got very good job security. Let's look at, in the next few minutes that I've got, here are the upcoming changes in the very near future. Virtual learning's here. New preventive methods I've given you a little hint for. AI is developing. I call that a developing technology. It's not there yet. I'm an old statistics teacher, and AI is a major meta-analysis. Stem cell gurgling. A lot of companies are buying up more small companies, acquisitions, and we are in dire need of leaders in the profession. There's my wife with her favorite toy, electron microscope. By the way, you old guys, I asked her at our 50th wedding anniversary, what do you want? Thinking it would be some ring or watch or bracelet or something. You're looking at it. It was only $300K. Wow. Electron microscope, but she is an expert in that at this point. There's one of our microbiologists looking at some of these caries strains. There's our head scientist in CR, Tim Palmer. He is an expert. That room is black for a reason. That's where we test curing lights. And Tim is an international authority on it. Couple more things. The use of printing is coming very rapidly. It's not here yet. That's the most popular one at the moment. It takes these 4 stages, which is a bit of a challenge. You have to have some space, and you can make some fairly interesting things. There's Culver's orientation. The ADA amended their coding system, and the CDT definition is any composite that has 51% ceramic filler in it, which all the composites just about do, except flowables, which are less filled. That 51% now qualifies as a ceramic crown. So that's going to facilitate you getting more payment. If you want to go to that website, I don't have any problem. If you copy any of these things, you could pull up that exact thing. There's a typical printed crown. Printed, pardon me while I take a shot of this vodka. Water. That's about a 20-minute print. It is not quite as strong as Filtech Supreme Ultra or some of the premium resins. However, on an interim basis, great. As a temporary, fantastic. And maybe with a little innovation, a long term. Zirconia is wonderful, but it's like 2 bricks hitting together. We're finding broken teeth. We're finding implants beat up. So maybe something that wears slightly would be better. And certainly you can make larger restorations with the printers. And even dentures. Some of the early ones were breaking, but now they're getting better, better, better. We're testing all the brands. And also this selective laser melting, all of your partial dentures now are made this way. They don't cast those anymore. They get a big pool of metal fragments, and that laser goes around in a circle, zap, 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 and builds that partial denture framework up. That's coming very fast. Well, lots of things happening. I envy you young people watching this. I sincerely do. I'd like to do it again. And I know maybe I'm a little weird, but I go into the office every day and I think, what's new today? What don't I know? What do I need to learn today? What can I do better that will last longer? That's one of my pet peeves. We've gone to toilet bowl white, but it doesn't last as long. Amalgam beats it double and triple. I'm not saying go back to amalgam. We need to get a little more emphasis on what? Longevity. A gold crown will last 40 years, even done moderately well. How long will some of these new crowns last? We don't know. The full zirconia has only been around 10 years. Lithium silicate, 10 or 11 years. So what's it going to be in the future? There are my predictions. Different, very viable. All 3 of our major conditions are either so complex, nobody's even being able to dent them. Caries, periodontal disease, and occlusion. You're having 6'4" people marry 4'8" people. You don't know what's going to pop out of mama. You know, the genetic intermix is amazing. Well, there's how you contact us if you want to. And you can get one of those catalogs if you go on the website, which was that pccdental.com, the top one. We'd love to have you get involved with some of our information. And as I said, it's not just me. It's the best people I can pick in the international profession. Now, I'll bet Lisa's got a question or two.
We sure do. All right, so everyone, we're going to take a few moments for Dr. Christensen to answer your questions. So please go ahead and type them into the Q&A box if you can. The first one we have is why, in your opinion, why in the 50s and 60s Was there only one dentist with one dental assistant?
Why were there fewer auxiliaries? Well, at this particular point, a general dentist has a 72% overhead on that 800,000. Back when I started, I was in one operatory. I was in graduate school, going in at 6 at night and practicing till 11 or 12 at night. And I was doing a lot of cast gold, which is down to 1.6% in the profession now. It was not 60% of American public coming to the dentist. Now we have 60%, and we have more than 50% of the American public is not working. That's what I said. More than 50%. I think it's 53% now do not work. So the bottom line is we're supporting all of these other people with our taxes and some of the political challenges that we all know are happening as we speak. So I think it's just a whole different time. Fewer people wanted dentistry. You hung up a single, which I did, and my goodness, the people just flocked in. Now we have, well, you saw the grievances of the dentists, and among them was too many schools. We now have 72 schools with 4 more in the planning stages. We will have 76 schools in a few months, and there are more in the planning stages coming after that. We've turned dentistry. I'm not negative about this, but it's a fact that all the new schools are not in major universities. They're in schools that they can set themselves up as a taxable nonprofit, but they still are there for making money. And there is a good bit of money to make with the average kid coming out of school at 200 to 400, 500,000. And we have 2 schools in Utah. The average is 500,000 in one of them when they're done. Many changes. I hope that was enough confusion to answer the question.
What are your thoughts on SDF?
Silver diamine fluoride. I grew up in the silver nitrate era, and my fingers did not have gloves on. I had about a third of my career with gloves only when I was in a bloody field. So I'm very accustomed to the negative aspects of that. Now, what are the positive aspects of it? Silver diamine fluoride will attenuate pain considerably. However, is your mother in an affluent area with a kid with a few lesions wanting the kid to come home with black teeth? No. So the major use for silver diamine fluoride is in developing countries. It's in nursing homes. It's in situations where there just isn't enough money. And the average American retiring at 67, give or take, has an income a little over poverty level. That's a national statistic, a little over poverty level. The average dentist retiring, only 6% of them have a standard of living that they can afford equal to when they were in practice. 6%. In other words, the money has flowed out all those practice years, and now they're back down to Social Security and what little savings some of them have. So silver diamine fluoride is basically, in my opinion, and I know I've lived in affluent communities all my life, but I've spoken in almost every major developing country, and there it is mandatory. It does cause a occlusion collapse. If you've got a big pothole in a tooth, you know what I'm talking about, and you just make the pain go away, they're not coming back. And what happens? The occlusion collapses. It interdigitates, and the kid is orthodontically filed up for the rest of his life. But, it does take down pain. It kills some of the organisms. We've proven that. Not a lot, but some. And it obturates a million dental canals in a central, 3 million in a molar. It plugs those up so the sensitivity's gone. It's not a godsend to the profession. I could be quoted on that. We need things that do not make that much color. A little potassium makes it a little gray instead of black. There are various things you can do to it to make it better. That was an Australian invention, sorry.
You covered conventional glass ionomers, but what is the best resin modified glass ionomer?
Now, I'm wondering if they want restorative or if they want a base or a liner or a cement. A cement, I mentioned earlier, I'll say it again. The two that have stuck their heads out and the most popular one by far is Reliax Luting resin modified glass ionomer. As you know, that has about 20% resin and 80% glass ionomer. It still has slightly open margins. It won't look like that SEM that Rella did that I showed you. The true glass ionomer would be in that company would be Relax Universal. Now that would be for restorations, but the Relax Luting is for cementing. And there are a lot of companies with that. The other major company is GC, General Chemical, and that product is Fujisem Evolve. So you got two, Relax Luting, Fujisem Evolve. If you use those cements, you will have karyostatic activity around the wide open margins of a zirconia crown, and they are wide open, 60 to 100 microns open. That's because of the scan and the spacing of your die. Three ways to make a digital feature. You've either scanned the mouth, that's the most accurate of the inaccurate procedure, or you've scanned the impression, or you've scanned a die that somebody's poured, and they get worse as you go to each one of those steps. None of them even come close to polyether or addition reaction silicone, but every impression you are making in Crown and Bridge is scanned now. They've got to get smaller pixels and some major changes. They don't really tell you that, but it's true. So get yourself some karyostatic cements, which we just mentioned, and you will overcome that problem.
Some cements claim they create hydroxyapatite and can fill defective margins. Are these claims exaggerated?
Hydroxyapatite can be developed by a very simple chemistry reaction. Product that I'm trying to remember the name of, Teeth Mate, just like it sounds. Teeth Mate is from Curari Noritake, has that exact chemistry. You mix a little water with a chemical, and you end up with fake hydroxyapatite. You could rub that on the external surface of a tooth 4 or 5 times with a blunted wooden toothpick. Sensitivity's gone. So you can obturate the dental canals with things like that. But to build a big millimeter or so of tooth structure, you're kind of kidding yourself. But you can at least cut down sensitivity considerably.
Dental management is the hardest part of dentistry. Any
Yeah.
ideas to help?
Yes and no. There are numerous companies who will send someone into your office. They'll analyze how you're working. They will critique it, but you're going to pay 40, 50 grand for it from most of the companies. And some dentists don't want to put that money out on the front end. So that's one way. You may have a friend who is particularly successful that you could go into their practice and watch. They would be flattered for you to do that, seriously. There are continuing education courses that have some value, and every one of the consultants who will come into your office does have online or live continuing education courses. I think we have a course that I assure you would double your productivity. It's called Faster, Easier, Higher Quality Dentistry. And that course I have given now for, my goodness, 45 years. It changes every year as the materials, devices, concepts, availability of staff, which is our biggest problem. I can pretty well guarantee you that would double your productivity if you implemented some of those concepts.
Can you recommend a couple of good scanners?
Yeah. The most popular is iTero. However, it gained its popularity because Invisalign, Align Technology, bought it out, and therefore the orthodontist jumped on it. And now with ortho, it doesn't matter that it's not quite accurate. When you go from this side of the arch to that side, you're losing accuracy as you go on around. That doesn't bother ortho. It does bother if I'm trying to put a bar from a bunch of implants. I wouldn't even consider that. You're back to vinyl or polyether. Invisalign is the most popular. The one that's moving probably faster than any other right now is Medit, M-E-D-I-T. It sells for about $18,000. Glidewell, the largest lab in the world, has picked it up, and they're selling it with a lot of benefits from Glidewell. There are, I could give you a half dozen of me too, me too, me too. If you look at them, they all have the same characteristics. A big handle on it. They've got a camera that will get some areas well, but has a hard time on the distal of second molars to get that large camera in there. Some are corded, some are not corded. A good basic starting or even final product would be Medit, but the rest are so similar. They've copied one another right down the line. If you put them all in a row, go into one of the Benco places, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, Dallas, or San Diego area, and just look at them. They're 6 of one, half a dozen the other. And the price ranges from 18 grand clear out up to 20 and 30 grand. It used to be 60. As technologies evolve, they get less and less expensive, as you know.
Let's see. How about the trends in going for fee for service versus being an insurance network provider?
I know hundreds of dentists who have done that with great success. I seldom take any third party personally. I'm a prosthodontist, surgical prosthodontist, placing implants for the last 35 years, restoring them the same way. In fact, it's ironical that tomorrow, to our own staff of 50 people, I'm giving a psychologics subject, which I do commonly in our staff meetings, and it's on professionalism versus commercialism. Somewhere in between those two words is where we have to live today. If you're all commercial, they soon figure that out. And basically, you're treating yourself after a little while, because I had a woman in just today who said, I was just into the dentist and he said I had to have 6 fillings. I looked over the mouth of a 70-year-old person who's probably had little pits there for 30 years and said, well, everybody has their own opinion. And I always put it in my body. I said, if it were me, I would not have those restored. They've been there half your life. We're seeing commercialism a little too much, in my very strong opinion. If we are professional, you don't say that yourself. Somebody says that about you. Because of what? Because of honesty, because they treat you like they want to be treated, because they are truly in a service of medicine, and they're not there to make money. There are a lot of other ways to make money. You make a very decent living in dentistry, but you can do that. There's a shock of about a year to 2. But that shock soon becomes well known. If you are a professional and you're treating them like you wanted to be treated, gradually they will flock to your place. There are several organizations starting up as we speak that are in promotion of private practice dentistry. Can be done.
What are your thoughts on facial scanners? That is scanning not just intraoral, but also extraoral.
We've tested some of them, and if you are really into a lot of aesthetic dentistry, they have significant advantage. For many years, I did a lot of maxillofacial prosthodontics, ears, eyes, nose, fingers, breasts, feet, did about everything. And it was always a problem back in the dark ages because there were no computers. So if I had an ear, I would have to make a picture of that ear and then reverse it so to do the other ear. Now it's so simple. I have one ear higher than the other. And it's so simple to do one of those facial recognition things and get an idea about watch me smile. I can't show too many teeth. I can show halfway up. As we age, you show less tooth because all the facial muscles are hanging. A little Botox there will get rid of that. There's so many things. Facial, they're good. They're expensive. Takes you a while to learn how to use them.
What are your thoughts on airway focused dentistry?
Airway focus. You're talking about sleep medicine. You're talking about
Yes.
all the things that I just intimated to. I've been doing portions of that for almost 50 years. When you get someone to stop snoring, what does it do? It saves marriages. It makes the life of both the snorer and the person who has to listen all night very, very much better. And as I said, 50% snore of adults, and 15% of those have sleep apnea with a AHI number, apnea hypoxia index, over 10. In fact, they're lowering that AHI index to 5. Between 5 and 10 is about, which says you're still breathing fairly adequately. That's well within the range of a general dentist because you're seeing the patient, a lot of you twice a year. I see the perio patients 3 times a year, 4 times a year. So you're seeing them routinely and you're following them. A physician sees them when they break something or it's bleeding or they've been in a car wreck. Yes, get into sleep medicine. The American Academy of Dental Sleep Medicine. American Academy of Dental Sleep Medicine. Look it up. There are lots of courses and recommendations there.
What is your opinion of single shade composites?
We were right on the forefront of that. We've tested at least 15 brands now. It will satisfy the majority. I'll bet those of you watching this thing probably used A2 almost all day today, occasionally an A3, infrequently a D, very infrequently, a darker color. And a kid, B1, you all know that. Now, if they make a composite that is more translucent, easily it would show whatever's behind it. So they've now got various ways to block that and still match color. The Omnichroma has taken a good bit of the market. Most people who got started on Omnichroma have stayed there, not all. I find a few who don't like the fact if I do a big class 4, there's nothing behind it, and they grin, you'll see the uvula jiggling right through it because it's so translucent. They're good. You have to cut your stock down. 3M has gone from 30 plus colors to 8 colors, and I just heard last week they're going down to 3 colors. That's 3M. They're never the first to come out, but they'll wait till others have come out, and then they come out a little later. So yes, they're good, but not for everybody.
Thoughts on AI dentistry, and then a follow-up to that is AI dentistry, AI for 2D radiographs specifically.
Okay. I'm going to give you a statistician's orientation. I taught statistics many years. I think most of you know what a meta-analysis is. That's where you take whatever 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 papers out of whatever literature is available in dentistry or whatever you're searching, and you get a group of experts. We hope they're really experts, and they limit that down to those that meet certain criteria. Let's say it's 40 papers. And then the average of those 40 papers is the solution. Let's take an example. What are the reasons for failure of implants? The only one in any meta-analysis I've been able to pull up that is definitively causative is smoking. And that I've never seen a paper yet that says smoking doesn't bother implants. But on the other hand, if I say, what material should I be using for whatever, you will have a milieu of answers that will confuse the heck out of you, and you still have to turn on the real computer, I got my fingers on it, to make the decision, because you get the mean. Is every one of your patients on the mean? No, one's older, one's younger, one lives in a remote area, one has no care for the last 20 years. So you still have to put your mind on that to make a decision about what AI has said. You will find very declarative sort of conclusions. They're not excitatory. They just add together all the facts and try to make a conclusion, average, a mean. Well, average and mean is different, as you know, but it's good. It's a developing technology. Don't depend on it. Now, we did that study I mentioned in this program already, where we had some experts in dental radiology look at periapical radiographs. First, you have to remember that the radiographs of today, and this was probably a younger person asking this question, the radiographs of today don't even come close to the analog radiographs of the past. They're 9 millimeters thick, the sensors, they're rigid as a board, they don't follow the arch. They have pixels that are too large, so you do not get the definitive characteristics of analog. We have to have new sensors immediately, and there are a couple of new ones coming out. AMD Lasers bringing out a new one, a so-called DC direct current one that's coming right now. Vatex working on one. We hope that'll be soon. We've had the same CMOS sensors for 25 years. We've got to get off that. So to take a flawed technology and base conclusions on it, give me a break. We're not there yet with that. I'm sorry they started with radiographs. They could have said, okay, what's the average on where the metal foramen is? You know, there's certain things that would be very, very desirable. It's a statistical average. That's what AI is. Your brain's still got to say, who's average in my practice? Maybe you'll find one. As you can see, I'm not totally overwhelmed at the moment.
All right. And final question. Actually, there was a comment about when the audience can expect you to publish a personal and professional memoir. But the final question was locators versus fixed hybrids, which is the best way to go?
That's about a day discussion. I'm going to give you a candid, but probably a disagreeing suggestion. I have a little pointy face. As you can see, I don't have fat cheeks. If you do an all-on-4 or whatever the heck number, I've been doing all-on-6s and 5s for 34 years. I won't do all-on-4 because when one goes, you're 20 grand in the hole, and one will go with 50% of implants failing now by 9 years, international data. So if you do my pointy face with all-on-4, my nose will stick out like a woodpecker because my facial form will collapse. Now, listening to this little presentation, undoubtedly, you have some fat faces out there. We have a square face. You can do an all-on-4 there and still have a relatively decent facial form. But anybody who's fairly skinny, they're an aesthetic nightmare. If you do locators, and now there's the new product from Zest is locator fixed. And if you don't know locator fixed, you dang well better look at it. Locator fixed has the same abutment. It has a different housing. And in that housing is PEEK, P-E-E-K. The PEEK is a flexible material that adapts to pressure, and it goes right in around that locator, and the patient can't get it out. and you have not cut off 5 millimeters, 5 millimeters. As a prosthodontist, I have to salvage a lot of patients coming from the community who have had all on fours. They have no bone left. 5 millimeters, 5 millimeters. What's left? Floor of the nose. What's left? Inferior alveolar canal. I think it's not going to be long before the all-on-4 thing will wither up and die. And the locator fixed concept, no bone taken off, simple locator. Let's say they go fixed and they say, which is the most common complaint, I can't clean under it, my breath stinks. And that's the most common complaint, period. If they say that, okay, we can use these same implants, the same abutments, and we can do fixed or removable on it, whichever you want. We can change it to removable. It'll take about 2 days. And now I'm talking to you, not the patient. Let's say one fails. Move over 3 millimeters, stick another one in, adapt the denture to it in a half hour. And for what? A couple $100, not $20,000. Fixed and removable over implants. I far prefer removable. If I had to have, thank goodness I have all my teeth but one, and that's got an implant. If I were a dentist, I would go removable, easily repaired, very much lower cost. The hygienist can get in and clean around it. You can bloat out the face exactly the way. Now, some women don't want it, so fine, give them fixed and show them how to clean it. We put a facade up there. We open the lingual up so they can take a water picker and blow the garbage out. We do not leave that void and let the lip shrink in. That's a very biased answer. I fully admit it, but I've been doing this 6 decades.